But friends, how many of you know how to write code? How many of you know how to drive a car? Drive a car. Okay. And how many of you know how to play cricket?
Are you nominated for sports event?
Have you nominated for STG Sports?
Yes.
So whether it is about driving a car or driving in cricket or driving your team crazy with your code, the common thing is focus on the foundations first, and once you get good at it, you actually have to not think about it as much. Right? So think about driving a car, you initially have to figure out where the accelerator is, where the brake is and so on, but eventually you just forget about it, it works subconsciously. You just focus at what's ahead of you. Right? Similarly, in cricket, Sachin used to say that if I'm playing well, I don't focus on what I'm doing here, I focus on the other end of the crease. What is the bowler doing? How has he held the ball? Where is he throwing it from, and so on. And the moment he starts thinking about what he's doing here, his batting is not as good, is what he feels. So the same with coding also, right? Initially, we learn the basics, but after a while, we say, okay, it subconsciously gets into your system, and then you only focus on the larger picture as you develop. Similarly, when it comes to speaking, initially we need to focus on some of the basics first, get them right, and accomplished speakers will say, oh, I don't focus on it as much, but that's because they have got the basics right, and later they can actually focus on what's ahead of them, the audience, look at how they are reacting, and in turn they can change the way they deliver the speech. So in the last 2 weeks what we talked about initially about how to engage the audience and about constructing your speech, which is the opening, body and close. We also talked briefly about CRPFs, so I wanted to elaborate a bit more on that. CRPF is it's an acronym for Crutch Words, Repeats, Pauses and Fillers. Those are the things that we should avoid in our speech. So let's take Crutch Words to begin with. So if you ask your manager, will I get a hike this quarter or a role change? And the manager responds, well, basically it's like, I mean, and so on. Those kinds of weasel words, what do you infer from it? You will realize that they're not really speaking from a place of confidence, that they don't really trust what they're going to tell you. Right? It's the same with when you deliver a speech. If you use these kinds of crutch words, which are words that you're actually using for support, that's why they're called crutch words. So if you use them, then the audience feels that you're not really confident about what you're talking about. So we should avoid those crutch words, like I mean, so, and so on. Just avoid those. How do you do that? I will come to it briefly. The second kind of group of words are called fillers, which are words like and so on. Now, I believe that we use these kinds of words because when we are talking to a person one-on-one, we use these words to tell them that we are still talking. Right? So if I'm saying something, but then I'm trying to remember something, I go, I know, wait. So it's essentially telling the other person that, wait, I'm not done speaking. That's why we use these kinds of fillers. But in public speaking, you don't actually need that. Nobody's going to interrupt you while you're given your stage. So you might have a couple of minutes or 5 minutes, whatever is given to you, but nobody's going to interrupt you if you just remain blank at that time. So you can actually avoid those fillers also. So initially when you're starting out and you notice that you're using a lot of crutch words or fillers, just replace them with blanks, just have pauses instead. That will ensure that your audience feels, okay, this person is going to say something. In fact, pauses, which is a third part of CRPF, there are essentially 2 kinds of pauses, long pauses and short pauses we call them. Long pauses are essentially where you have forgotten your speech and so you're trying to remember. Yes, you should avoid that and you can only do that by practice. Short pauses can be used for effect. So you can pause for effect as if you're going to say something, and then that creates a sense of curiosity in the audience. So you can use those kinds of pauses to actually engage the audience a bit more. So you can use those short pauses and convert all those fillers and crutch words into pauses. That will also help you to improve your speech overall. And finally, we come to repeats. See again, because I'm looking for a word. So repeats are words that you should usually avoid. Again, it comes when you are trying to remember your speech, so you tend to repeat yourself over and over again, as we would have seen in the past with some speeches. Now there are times when you can repeat for emphasis. I repeat, you can repeat some parts when you want to emphasize something, but generally avoid repetition. So those are the CRPFs of things that we can avoid. Now, the speaker that we have today has not been told about any of these, so please don't judge him about this. So today we have one speaker, a prepared speaker, and then we will have our table topics as usual, the impromptu speeches. So please welcome Shrey Saggar to this speech.